In this content, we're going to go a little deeper into the MBTI. So what is it? It's the pencil paper personality measure self-report that determines 16 personality types on these 4 dimensions. Your fundamental attitude, are you directed inward or outward? Your rational or your judging functions, how do you make decisions? Your irrational or your perceiving functions, how do you perceive the world? And your auxiliary functions, how do you present yourself to the world? So your fundamental attitude is introversion or extroversion. That's how you orient toward your inner or outer reality. So do you tend to orient inward or outward is how Jung describes this. So introversion, I, is what you get in your first position of your profile. That means a person gets their energy from time alone. They feel energized after they have that time alone, and if they're too long with other people, they feel weary or dull. Whereas extroversion, a person derives their energy from time with others and feels dull or lethargic when they're alone too long. And so the introvert here in this couple saying, let's go in. I like to think things through before speaking or acting. I don't like small talk. Communicate better in writing than in person. I don't like sudden changes. I like to spend time alone or with people I'm comfortable with. And let's go out is this extrovert is saying, I like to act or speak first before thinking. I can talk to anyone. I like to be around a lot of people. I seek adventure. I like to keep myself busy or else I get bored. So maybe you can plug yourself into one or the other of these. And note that it's not necessarily meaning that an introvert has bad social skills. Note that it's based on where they get their energy from, time alone or time with others. And so he posits that each individual navigates life with a fundamental attitude of introversion or extroversion. The rational or judging functions, on what basis do we make decisions? So do you make your decision by thinking it through, giving logic or thoughtful processes to make a decision, or do you tend to base it on feeling? You're going to give more consideration to emotion or feeling. And you can see the difference. A person whose rational function is based on thinking might tend to be objective, rational. They want to be respected for their expertise. They tend to follow policy. They might be very firm-minded and sometimes critical of others. And they might tend to value money, prestige, and power. Whereas someone who's based more on the feeling dimension might use their personal values to make decisions. They might promote harmony and relate very well to others. They might enjoy serving and value careers that make a contribution to humanity. So maybe you can plug yourself in here, and this J we'll see again. So this is your judging function, so we'll come back to that. Your irrational or perceiving functions related to this letter P are how you take in information, how you perceive what's in the world around you, and you perceive it through your senses, paying most attention to what you can learn from the 5 senses or the physical evidence around you, or more through intuiting, giving consideration to what you can learn from all the information and listening to that amalgam that's created through interactions in your unconscious and what you know. So here again, the sensing are focusing on the reality of how things are, paying attention to concrete facts. They prefer ideals that have practical applications. They don't like to get off into abstract thinking, and they like to describe things very specifically and literally. Or if you have this N, we use the N here because we've already used the I for introversion. You imagine the possibilities, how things could be. You see the big picture. You're good at seeing connections among things. You enjoy ideas and concepts for their own sake, and you like to describe things figuratively, poetically. You like metaphor. Then you're more of an N. Albert Einstein speaks up for this intuitive mind, saying the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And so Albert Einstein relied on his tuition for some of his findings. Finally, the auxiliary function is how you live your outer life. What do other people see? And now we go back to whatever you had in your J or your P. And so you either use whatever you had in your judging category, your second letter, typically the second letter. This means the person prefers a planned, orderly way of life. They like things settled, organized. They feel more comfortable when decisions are made. And someone with a P in this position seems to prefer a flexible, spontaneous way of life, understanding, adapting to the world flexibly, staying open to new experiences and information. And here are some characteristics. A judging person might be an early starter, do their projects well in advance, focused, structure activities one thing at a time, allowing adequate time, so pretty organized, systematic, likes order, structure, formal planning for contingencies, likes to have schedules and familiar routines, likes to schedule future commitments far in advance and organize their energies along those dates and deadlines, and methodical, being very intentional with work organized step by step. A perceiving person might tend to wait till the last minute, preferring a little bit of pressure to get them moving. And they like variety and doing different things. They get their best work done when the deadline is near. They tend to be casual, adjusting as the situation requires. And they like informal guidelines rather than structured rules, so they're more adaptable. They're spontaneous. They don't want to have the same routines all the time. They want variety and change. Open-ended. They like flexibility and freedom. They don't like being tied down by long-range plans. And emergent. They tend to move quickly without detailed plans and plan on the go. That leads to a little more risk-taking. And so you can see how the stress level goes. So at the start of a project, the person who tends to have that J functionality, they have the highest stress level at the start, and then as they get it done, their stress level relieves. The person who is at the P in that letter tend to have their stress rising at the end as that deadline approaches. So here we have a couple of different types, and there are different characteristics or works linked to these different types. And so type 1 tends to be ESTJ as a common characteristic, and type 2, the INFP, is a common characteristic, a common cluster of characteristics. And how do these relate to what we should do? So first off, in the US, about 70 to 75% prefers extroversion. The rest are introverted. 3/4 prefer sensing to intuition, so they like that actual fact-based. About half prefer thinking to feeling. There's a sex difference in genders, as you can see. And 50 to 65% prefer the J to the P. So if you're in that second type 2 category, you're a minority in the United States. So does this predict anything? Does it predict your job preferences, sports, geographic region, unemployment, income? And the answer is yes. You can see different personality types leading to different characteristics. So for example, the INFP tend to be more toward the healing. That's that type 2 characteristic. Counseling, teachers, sort of like this. Teachers maybe having more on that E. The counselors preferring more of those one-to-one interactions. Whereas we have people who are performing, providing, protecting, tending to be in this cluster. We can see supervising, promoters, inspectors, really logically driven. And then people with a lot of vision tend to have the TJ characteristics, some of these over on this cluster. So you can take a closer look at that and see what you think. It also tends to predict sports preference. So that type 2 that we looked at a minute ago, the INFP, maybe more preferring lawn bowling, or INFJ tending more towards cycling, solo sports, and that's different from some of these extroverts who are more engaged in social sports. And it also predicts unemployment, and you'll see that kind of sadly, the INFP, that type 2 minority in the United States, do tend to have more difficulty finding jobs, probably because of that flying at the seat of your pants kind of approach to things doesn't necessarily work well in this culture. So you can see the highest unemployment rates in some of these introverts relying on the FP feeling and perceiving kind of characteristics. So maybe not being more successful, whereas the ENTJs very low unemployment. Same for the ISTJs, so that thinking, judging, tending to have people get better jobs. This could too be that the feeling, perceiving people have more artistic bent that doesn't necessarily lend itself to traditional employment, but they are making money in other ways. And it also predicts income. You could see that the ENTJs are the richest in this country, and the poorest are in that ENTP, the thinking, perceiving kind of cluster, tending to have lower characteristics. This is something that really it's best for you to look at more closely on your own. It also predicts where we're likely to live. We don't see Arizona specifically in here, but we do see that where I'm from, up north, friendly conventional regions tends to have more, actually I can't see quite what it is. We can sense relaxed and creative more in the southwest, and this is where I've moved to from this Midwest region. And then we can see this temperamental, uninhibited area up here in the Northeast and a little bit in Texas. So here is a possible journal entry related to the MBTI, and you can talk about how well your test results align to how you see yourself.